Welcome to the God Quiz channel. Are you ready for a new challenge? Before we dive in, show your support by giving us a like, subscribing, and commenting Amen below. Don't forget to share how many questions you answered correctly at the end. So, let's get started. Whose idea was it to sell Joseph instead of killing him? A. Levi. B. Reuben. C. Judah. D. Benjamin. The right answer is letter C. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay a hand on him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And they agreed. Whose robe of many colors was ripped off, and he was sold as a slave to Ishmaelites? A. Joseph. B. Moses. C. Jacob. D. Isaac. The right answer is letter A. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the pit. Now the pit was empty, with no water in it. What did Joseph accuse his brothers of when they wanted to buy grain in Egypt? A. Rebellion. B. Spying. C. Destruction of a village. D. He didn't accuse his brothers. The right answer is letter B. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Joseph remembered his dreams about them and said, "You are spies. You have come to see if our land is vulnerable." When did Joseph's dream of his brothers bowing down to him come true? A. 3 days after the dream. B. When he was 20 years old. C. When he was sold. D. When they arrived in Egypt. The right answer is letter C. Joseph's dream of his brothers bowing down to him came true when they arrived in Egypt seeking grain during the famine. Who was the first high priest of Israel? A. Aaron. B. Eli. C. Samuel. D. Moses. The right answer is letter A. Next, have your brother Aaron brought to you from among the Israelites, along with his sons Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, to serve me as priests. Make holy garments for your brother Aaron, to give him glory and splendor. What was the name of the king who had a banquet where a mysterious hand appeared and wrote on the wall? A. Nebuchadnezzar. B. Belshazzar. C. Darius. D. Cyrus. The right answer is letter B. Later, King Belshazzar held a great feast for 1,000 of his nobles, and he drank wine with them. Under the influence of the wine, Belshazzar gave orders to bring in the gold and silver vessels that Nebuchadnezzar his father had taken from the temple in Jerusalem. Who was the man who was thrown into a den of lions but survived because God shut the lions' mouths? A. David. B. Daniel. C. Jeremiah. D. Ezekiel. The right answer is letter B. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the den of lions. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles. What was the name of the prophet who saw a valley of dry bones come to life? A. Ezekiel. B. Jeremiah. C. Isaiah. D. Daniel. The right answer is letter A. The hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me out by his Spirit and set me down in the middle of the valley, and it was full of bones. He led me all around among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, and indeed they were very dry. Then he asked me, "Son of man, can these bones come to life?" Who was the king who had a vineyard taken from him by force because he refused to sell it to the king? A. Elijah. B. Ahab. C. Naboth. D. Elisha. The right answer is letter C. So Ahab went to his palace, sullen and angry because Naboth the Jezreelite had told him, "I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers." He lay down on his bed, turned his face away, and refused to eat. Soon his wife Jezebel came in and asked, "Why are you so sullen that you refuse to eat?" Which prophet was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind without experiencing death? A. Elisha. B. Elijah. C. Isaiah. D. Jeremiah. The right answer is letter B. "You have requested a difficult thing," said Elijah. "Nevertheless, if you see me as I am taken from you, it will be yours, but if not, then it will not be so." As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire with horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up into heaven in a whirlwind. What was the name of the woman who tricked Samson into revealing the secret of his strength? A. Delilah. B. Ruth. C. Deborah. D. Jael. The right answer is letter A. Sometime later, Samson fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The lords of the Philistines went to her and said, "Entice him, and find out the source of his great strength, and how we can overpower him to tie him up and subdue him." What was the name of the man who betrayed Jesus with a kiss? A. Judas Iscariot. B. Peter. C. John. D. Thomas. The right answer is letter A. While Jesus was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived, accompanied by a large crowd armed with swords and clubs sent from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Who was the prophet who was thrown into a cistern by his own people but later rescued? A. Ezekiel. B. Isaiah. C. Amos. D. Jeremiah. The right answer is letter D. "Here he is," replied King Zedekiah. "He is in your hands, since the king can do nothing to stop you." So they took Jeremiah and dropped him into the cistern of Malchiah, the king's son, which was in the courtyard of the guard. They lowered Jeremiah with ropes into the cistern, which had no water but only mud, and Jeremiah sank down into the mud. What was the name of the city that was destroyed by fire and brimstone because of its wickedness? A. Jerusalem. B. Sodom and Gomorrah. C. Jericho. D. Ai. The right answer is letter B. Then the Lord rained down sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he destroyed these cities and the entire plain, including all the inhabitants of the cities and everything that grew on the ground. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Who was the disciple who doubted Jesus' resurrection until he saw him with his own eyes? A. John. B. Peter. C. Thomas. D. Andrew. The right answer is letter C. Now, Thomas, called Didymus, D, one of the 12, was not with the disciples when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he replied, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails have been, and put my hand into his side, I will never believe." What was the name of the prophet who was swallowed by a great fish and later preached repentance to the city of Nineveh? A. Micah. B. Jonah. C. Nahum. D. Obadiah. Then the men feared the Lord greatly, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. Now the Lord had appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah spent 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the fish. Who was the man who built an ark to save his family and animals from a global flood? A. Noah. B. Abraham. C. Moses. D. Jacob. The right answer is letter A. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. So the Lord said, "I will blot out man, whom I have created, from the face of the earth, every man and beast and crawling creature and bird of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them." What was the name of the king who decreed that all the Jewish people should be killed, but was thwarted by Queen Esther? A. Artaxerxes. B. Cyrus. C. Darius. D. Xerxes. The right answer is letter D. King Xerxes, Ahasuerus, initially approved Haman's plan to kill all the Jews, but Queen Esther's intervention led to the plan's failure and the saving of her people. Who was the woman who provided food and shelter for the prophet Elisha whenever he passed through her town? A. Naomi. B. Rahab. C. Hagar. D. The Shunammite woman. The right answer is letter D. One day, Elisha went to Shunem, and a prominent woman who lived there persuaded him to have a meal. So whenever he would pass by, he would stop there to eat. Then the woman said to her husband, "Behold, now I know that the one who often comes our way is a holy man of God." What was the name of the man who betrayed his brother by stealing his birthright and blessing? A. Isaac. B. Esau. C. Jacob. D. Abraham. The right answer is letter C. One day, while Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the field and was famished. He said to Jacob, "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am famished." That is why he was also called Edom. "First sell me your birthright," Jacob replied. Who was the high priest who condemned Jesus for blasphemy? A. Annas. B. Caiaphas. C. Eli. D. Aaron. The right answer is letter B. Those who had arrested Jesus led him away to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and elders had gathered. But Peter followed him at a distance, right up to the courtyard of the high priest, and he went in and sat down with the guards to see the outcome. What type of bird was sent out by Noah after the raven to see if the water had receded from the earth? A. Dove. B. Sparrow. C. Eagle. D. Finch. The right answer is letter A. Then Noah sent out a dove to see if the waters had receded from the surface of the ground. But the dove found no place to rest her foot, and she returned to him in the ark, because the waters were still covering the surface of all the earth. So he reached out his hand and brought her back inside the ark. Who was the prophet that married a prostitute as a symbol of God's relationship with unfaithful Israel? A. Hosea. B. Amos. C. Isaiah. D. Micah. The right answer is letter A. This is the word of the Lord that came to Hosea son of Beeri in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and of Jeroboam son of Jehoash, a king of Israel, when the Lord first spoke through Hosea. Who was the king who tore his robe when he heard the reading of the law, realizing that the nation had not been obeying God? A. Hezekiah. B. Josiah. C. David. D. Solomon. The right answer is letter B. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his clothes and commanded Hilkiah the priest, Ahikam son of Shaphan, Achborah son of Micaiah, Shaphan the scribe, and Asaiah the servant of the king. Go and inquire of the Lord for me, for the people, and for all Judah concerning the words in this book that has been found. As a baby, how was Moses saved from Pharaoh's murderous decree? A. He was hidden in a cave. B. He was rushed out of Egypt. C. He was put in a basket and left by the river. D. He was taken to the temple to serve God. The right answer is letter C. But when she could no longer hide him, she got him a papyrus basket and coated it with tar and pitch. Then she placed the child in the basket and set it among the reeds along the bank of the Nile, and his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. What was the name of Moses' sister who helped save him when he was a baby? A. Miriam. B. Zipporah. C. Deborah. D. Rachel. The right answer is letter A. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call one of the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" "Go ahead," Pharaoh's daughter told her. And the girl went and called the boy's mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse him for me, and I will pay your wages." So the woman took the boy and nursed him. Who was the disciple known as the Zealot? A. Bartholomew. B. Judas. C. Matthew. D. Simon. The right answer is letter D. He also designated as apostles Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, James and John, Philip and Bartholomew, Matthew and Thomas, James son of Alphaeus and Simon called the Zealot, Judas son of James and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. What was the name of the place where Jacob wrestled with an angel and his name was changed to Israel? A. Bethel. B. Peniel. C. Hebron. D. Mahanaim. The right answer is letter B. But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed Jacob there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, saying, "Indeed, I have seen God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed by Penuel, and he was limping because of his hip. Who was thrown into a fiery furnace but survived unharmed? A. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. B. Daniel. C. Ezekiel. D. Jeremiah. The right answer is letter A. At this, Nebuchadnezzar was filled with rage, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He gave orders to heat the furnace 7 times hotter than usual, and he commanded some mighty men of valor in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing fiery furnace. What city did Joshua's army conquer by marching around its walls? A. Jericho. B. Jerusalem. C. Bethel. D. Ai. The right answer is letter A. Now Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "Behold, I have delivered Jericho into your hand, along with its king and its mighty men of valor." Who was known for his wisdom but eventually turned away from God because of his many wives? A. David. B. Solomon. C. Saul. D. Rehoboam. The right answer is letter B. Now the Lord grew angry with Solomon because his heart had turned away from the Lord, the God of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. Although he had warned Solomon explicitly not to follow other gods, Solomon did not keep the Lord's command. What type of insect was sent as a plague to Egypt? A. Ants. B. Flies. C. Bees. D. Locusts. The right answer is letter D. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt, so that the locust may swarm over it and devour every plant in the land, everything that the hail has left behind." So Moses stretched out his staff over the land of Egypt, and throughout that day and night the Lord sent an east wind across the land. What was the name of the place where God provided Abraham a ram to sacrifice instead of his son Isaac? A. Mount Carmel. B. Mount Sinai. C. Mount Moriah. D. Mount Ararat. The right answer is letter C. "Take your son," God said, "your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will show you." So Abraham got up early the next morning, saddled his donkey, and took along 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. Who was the prophet that confronted King Ahab about Naboth's vineyard? A. Elisha. B. Elijah. C. Isaiah. D. Jeremiah. The right answer is letter B. Then the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, "Get up and go down to meet Ahab king of Israel, who is in Samaria. See, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, of which he has gone to take possession." What disaster befell Sodom and Gomorrah? A. Flood. B. Earthquake. C. Fire and brimstone. D. Famine. The right answer is letter C. Then the Lord rained down sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he destroyed these cities and the entire plain, including all the inhabitants of the cities and everything that grew on the ground. Who found baby Moses floating in the Nile River? A. Pharaoh's daughter. B. Miriam. C. Jochebed. D. Aaron. The right answer is letter A. Soon the daughter of Pharaoh went down to bathe in the Nile, and her attendants were walking along the riverbank. And when she saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maidservant to retrieve it. What large body of water did Moses part to allow the Israelites to escape Egypt? A. The Nile River. B. The Red Sea. C. The Jordan River. D. The Sea of Galilee. The right answer is letter B. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove back the sea with a strong east wind that turned it into dry land. So the waters were divided, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground, with walls of water on their right and on their left. Who had a dream involving a statue made of different metals and a stone that struck it? A. Darius. B. Daniel. C. Belshazzar. D. Nebuchadnezzar. The right answer is letter D. King Nebuchadnezzar dreamed of a statue made of various metals which was destroyed by a stone that struck its feet, symbolizing future kingdoms and the eventual establishment of God's everlasting kingdom. What was the main diet of John the Baptist in the wilderness? A. Figs and water. B. Locusts and wild honey. C. Bread and fish. D. Olives and herbs. The right answer is letter B. John wore a garment of camel's hair with a leather belt around his waist. His food was locusts and wild honey. People went out to him from Jerusalem and all Judea and the whole region around the Jordan. Who was the mother of Samuel, the prophet? A. Hannah. B. Elizabeth. C. Rachel. D. Sarah. The right answer is letter A. And Elkanah had relations with his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, "Because I have asked for him from the Lord." Which prophet was taken up to heaven in a chariot of fire? A. Isaiah. B. Elisha. C. Elijah. D. Ezekiel. The right answer is letter C. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire with horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up into heaven in a whirlwind. As Elisha watched, he cried out, my father, the chariots and horsemen of Israel. Israel. What were the names of the two pillars in front of Solomon's temple? A. Hiram and Tyre. B. Jachin and Boaz. C. Aholiab and Bezalel. D. Uzziah and Ahaz. The right answer is letter B. Thus he set up the pillars at the portico of the temple. The pillar to the south he named Jachin, and the pillar to the north he named Boaz. And the tops of the pillars were shaped like lilies, so the work of the pillars was completed. Who was the Moabite woman who became the great-grandmother of King David? A. Naomi. B. Ruth. C. Orpah. D. Bathsheba. The right answer is letter B. And Naomi took the child, placed him on her lap, and became a nurse to him. The neighbor women said, a son has been born to Naomi, and they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse, the father of David. What type of wood was Noah's Ark made from? A. Gopher wood. B. Cedar wood. C. Olive wood. D. Acacia wood. The right answer is letter A. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and coat it with pitch inside and out. And this is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Which prophet had a vision of a new temple in Jerusalem with measurements and specific instructions? A. Jeremiah. B. Daniel. C. Ezekiel. D. Isaiah. The right answer is letter C. In visions of God, he took me to the land of Israel and set me on a very high mountain, on whose southern slope was a structure that resembled a city. So he took me there, and I saw a man whose appearance was like bronze. Who was the last judge of Israel before the monarchy was established? A. Eli. B. Samuel. C. Gideon. D. Samson. The right answer is letter B. When the Philistines heard that the Israelites had gathered at Mizpah, their rulers marched up toward Israel. And when the Israelites learned of this, they feared the Philistines and said to Samuel, "Do not stop crying out to the Lord our God for us." Which apostle walked on water with Jesus? A. James. B. John. C. Peter. D. Thomas. The right answer is letter C. But Jesus spoke up at once. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." "Lord, if it is you," Peter replied, "command me to come to you on the water." "Come," said Jesus. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. What were the first creatures created on the fifth day of creation? A. Land animals. B. Birds and fish. C. Humans. D. Insects. The right answer is letter B. And God said, "Let the waters teem with living creatures and let birds fly above the earth in the open expanse of the sky." So God created the great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters teemed according to their kinds, and every bird of flight after its kind. Who was the Roman governor who presided over the trial of Jesus? A. Pontius Pilate. B. Herod Antipas. C. Felix. D. Festus. The right answer is letter A. By now it was early morning, and the Jews did not enter the praetorium to avoid being defiled and unable to eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and asked, "What accusation are you bringing against this man?" What was used to seal the stone of Jesus' tomb? A. A wooden beam. B. A wax seal. C. A Roman guard. D. A large rock. The right answer is letter D. So Joseph took the body, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth, and placed it in his own new tomb that he had cut into the rock. Then he rolled a great stone across the entrance to the tomb and went away. Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. Who replaced Judas Iscariot as the 12th apostle? A. Matthias. B. Barnabas. C. Silas. D. Stephen. The right answer is letter A. Show us which of these two you have chosen to take up this ministry and apostleship, which Judas abandoned to go to his rightful place. Then they cast lots, and the lot fell to Matthias, so he was added to the 11 apostles. What was the main message of John the Baptist's preaching? A. Love your neighbor. B. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near. C. Follow the law of Moses. D. Worship only God. The right answer is letter B. In those days, John the Baptist came, preaching in the wilderness of Judea and saying, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near." This is he who was spoken of through the prophet Isaiah, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, "Prepare the way for the Lord, make straight paths for him." Which king had a dream of a tree that was cut down at God's command? A. Nebuchadnezzar. B. Darius. C. Belshazzar. D. Cyrus. The right answer is letter A. As I lay on my bed, I also saw in the visions of my mind a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. He called out in a loud voice, "Cut down the tree and chop off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Let the beasts flee from under it and the birds from its branches." What was the first plague that God sent upon Egypt? A. Lice. B. Frogs. C. Water turned to blood. D. Darkness. The right answer is letter C. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. In the presence of Pharaoh and his officials, Aaron raised the staff and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water was turned to blood. What was the sign God gave Noah that he would never again flood the entire earth? A. A star. B. A rainbow. C. An olive branch. D. A dove. The right answer is letter B. And God said, "This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth." Which animal spoke to a prophet? A. A donkey. B. A raven. C. A serpent. D. A whale. The right answer is letter A. Then the Lord opened the donkey's mouth, and she said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times?" Balaam answered the donkey, "You have made a fool of me. If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now." Who was the second king of Israel? A. Saul. B. Solomon. C. David. D. Absalom. The right answer is letter C. So Jesse sent for his youngest son and brought him in. He was ruddy, with beautiful eyes and a handsome appearance. And the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him, for he is the one." So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers, and the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon David from that day forward. Then Samuel set out and went to Ramah. Which prophet was told to eat a scroll in a vision? A. Daniel. B. Ezekiel. C. Isaiah. D. Jeremiah. The right answer is letter B. "Son of man," he said to me, "eat what you find here. Eat this scroll, then go and speak to the house of Israel." So I opened my mouth, and he fed me the scroll. "Son of man," he said to me, "eat and fill your stomach with this scroll I am giving you." So I ate, and it was as sweet as honey in my mouth. Then he said to me, Son of man, go now to the house of Israel and speak my words to them. What object did God instruct Moses to throw into the waters of Marah to make them sweet? A. A stone. B. A branch. C. A piece of gold. D. A bronze serpent. The right answer is letter B. And when they came to Marah, see, they could not drink the water there because it was bitter. That is why it was named Marah. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" And Moses cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a log. And when he cast it into the waters, they were sweetened. There the Lord made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he tested them. Who was the first person to die after the flood? A. Shem. B. Ham. C. Nimrod. D. Terah. The right answer is letter D. But Sarai was barren. She had no children. And Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, the wife of Abram, and they set out from Ur of the Chaldeans for the land of Canaan. But when they arrived in Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years, and he died in Haran. Who was the father of the 12 tribes of Israel? A. Jacob. B. Isaac. C. Abraham. D. Joseph. The right answer is letter A. Israel again set out and pitched his tent beyond the Tower of Eder. While Israel was living in that region, Reuben went in and slept with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard about it. Jacob had 12 sons. The sons of Leah were Reuben the firstborn of Jacob, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. Which prophet foretold the fall of Jerusalem while in Babylon? A. Jeremiah. B. Abraham. C. Daniel. D. Ezekiel. The right answer is letter D. In the 9th year, on the 10th day of the 10th month, the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, write down today's date, for on this very day the king of Babylon has laid siege to Jerusalem. Now speak a parable to this rebellious house, and tell them that this is what the Lord God says. Put the pot on the fire, put it on, and pour in the water. In which book does God speak from a whirlwind? A. Psalms. B. Amos. C. Job. D. Proverbs. The right answer is letter C. Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this who obscures my counsel by words without knowledge? Now brace yourself like a man. I will question you, and you shall inform me. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding, who fixed its measurements? What is the name of the place where Abraham was to sacrifice Isaac? A. Gilead. B. Sinai. C. Moriah. D. Olives. The right answer is letter C. Here I am, he answered. Take your son, God said, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, which I will show you. So Abraham got up early the next morning, saddled his donkey, and took along 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. Who was the only female judge mentioned in the book of Judges? A. Deborah. B. Ruth. C. Delilah. D. Jezebel. The right answer is letter A. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord because Jabin had 900 chariots of iron, and he had harshly oppressed the Israelites for 20 years. Now Deborah, a prophetess, the wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel at that time, and she would sit under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim. Which group of people were defeated with the help of the sun and moon standing still? A. Midianites. B. Amorites. C. Philistines. D. Canaanites. The right answer is letter B. On the day that the Lord gave the Amorites over to the Israelites, Joshua spoke to the Lord in the presence of Israel. O sun, stand still over Gibeon, O moon, over the valley of Ajalon. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped until the nation took vengeance upon its enemies. Is this not written in the book of Jasher? What did King Solomon ask God to give him in a dream? A. Long life. B. Riches. C. The death of his enemies. D. Wisdom. But I am only a little child, not knowing how to go out or come in. Your servant is here among the people you have chosen, a people too numerous to count or number. Therefore, give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people and to discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? Which prophet is known for his prophecy of the new covenant? A. Isaiah. B. Jeremiah. C. Ezekiel. D. Daniel. The right answer is letter B. Instead, each will die for his own iniquity. If anyone eats the sour grapes, his own teeth will be set on edge. Behold, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their fathers when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land. Who was sold into slavery to Ishmaelite traders by his brothers? A. Daniel. B. Gideon. C. Samson. D. Joseph. So when the Midianite traders passed by, his brothers pulled Joseph out of the pit and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes, returned to his brothers, and said, "The boy is gone. What am I going to do?" What city did David capture, which later became the capital of his kingdom? A. Hebron. B. Bethlehem. C. Jerusalem. D. Jericho. The right answer is letter C. Now the king and his men marched to Jerusalem against the Jebusites who inhabited the land. The Jebusites said to David, "You will never get in here. Even the blind and lame can repel you." For they thought, "David cannot get in here." Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, that is, the city of David. What was the sign given to Gideon that God would save Israel by his hand? A. Dew on the fleece only. B. Fire from rock. C. Splitting of a tree. D. Voices from heaven. The right answer is letter A. Then Gideon said to God, "If you are going to save Israel by my hand, as you have said, then behold, I will place a fleece of wool on the threshing floor. If there is dew only on the fleece and all the ground is dry, then I will know that you are going to save Israel by my hand, as you have said." And that is what happened. Who made a covenant with God that included circumcision as a sign? A. Noah. B. Abraham. C. Isaac. D. Jacob. The right answer is letter B. God also said to Abraham, "You must keep my covenant, you and your descendants in the generations after you. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you, which you are to keep. Every male among you must be circumcised. You are to circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and this will be a sign of the covenant between me and you." Which prophet married a woman named Gomer? A. Hosea. B. Joel. C. Amos. D. Jonah. The right answer is letter A. When the Lord first spoke through Hosea, he told him, "Go, take a prostitute as your wife and have children of adultery, because this land is flagrantly prostituting itself by departing from the Lord." So Hosea went and married Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. Who found the law of Moses during the reign of King Josiah? A. Hilkiah. B. Shaphan. C. Ahikam. D. Micaiah. The right answer is letter A. Then Hilkiah the high priest said to Shaphan the scribe, "I have found the book of the law in the house of the Lord." And he gave it to Shaphan, who read it. And Shaphan the scribe went to the king and reported, "Your servants have paid out the money that was found in the temple, and have put it into the hands of the workers and supervisors of the house of the Lord." Which Hebrew woman became queen of Persia? A. Deborah. B. Ruth. C. Esther. D. Miriam. The right answer is letter C. And the king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she found grace and favor in his sight more than all of the other virgins. So he placed the royal crown upon her head and made her queen in place of Vashti. Then the king held a great banquet, Esther's banquet, for all his officials and servants. What were the names of Isaac's twin sons? A. Cain and Abel. B. Jacob and Esau. C. Ephraim and Manasseh. D. Perez and Zerah. The right answer is letter B. When her time came to give birth, there were indeed twins in her womb. The first one came out red, covered with hair like a fur coat, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob, and Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born. What material was the veil of the tabernacle made from? A. Goat hair. B. Linen. C. Silk. D. Wool. The right answer is letter B. Make a veil of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn and finely spun linen with cherubim skillfully worked into it. Hang it with gold hooks on 4 posts of acacia wood, overlaid with gold and standing on 4 silver bases, and hang the veil from the clasps and place the ark of the testimony behind the veil, so the veil will separate the holy place from the most holy place. What was the dream of Pharaoh that Joseph interpreted? A. A vine with 3 branches. B. The sun and moon bowing to him. C. 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows. D. Stars bowing to the earth. The right answer is letter C. When 7 cows, sleek and well-fed, came up from the river and began to graze among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, sickly and thin, came up from the Nile and stood beside the well-fed cows on the bank of the river. And the cows that were sickly and thin devoured the 7 sleek, well-fed cows. Who was the prophet that rebuked King David for his adultery with Bathsheba? A. Ahijah. B. Samuel. C. Gad. D. Nathan. The right answer is letter D. Then the Lord sent Nathan to David, and when he arrived, he said, "There were 2 men in a certain city, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a great number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except 1 small ewe lamb that he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up with him and his children." Which woman saved the spies sent by Joshua with a scarlet cord? A. Ruth. B. Rahab. C. Deborah. D. Delilah. The right answer is letter B. If anyone goes out the door of your house into the street, his blood will be on his own head and we will be innocent. But if a hand is laid on anyone with you in the house, his blood will be on our heads. And if you report our mission, we will be released from the oath you made us swear. Let it be as you say, she replied, and she sent them away. Which son of Noah is considered the ancestor of the Jewish people? A. Shem. B. Ham. C. Japheth. D. Canaan. The right answer is letter A. He also declared, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the servant of Shem. May God expand the territory of Japheth. May he dwell in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. So Noah lived a total of 950 years, and then he died. Who was the priest who taught Samuel in the temple? A. Phinehas. B. Aaron. C. Eli. D. Eleazar. The right answer is letter C. Once she had weaned him, Hannah took the boy with her, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine. Though the boy was still young, she brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. And when they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli. "Please, my lord," said Hannah, "as surely as you live, my lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord." What unusual weapon did Shamgar use to kill 600 Philistines? A. A sharpened plowshare. B. A jawbone of a donkey. C. A cattle prod. D. A tent peg. The right answer is letter C. At that time, they struck down about 10,000 Moabites, all robust and valiant men. Not one of them escaped. So Moab was subdued under the hand of Israel that day, and the land had rest for 80 years. After Ehud came Shamgar son of Anath, and he too saved Israel, striking down 600 Philistines with an ox goad. Who was swallowed by the earth along with his followers after rebelling against Moses? A. Korah. B. Dathan. C. Abiram. D. All of the above. The right answer is letter D. As soon as Moses had finished saying all this, the ground beneath them split open, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, all Korah's men and all their possessions. They went down alive into Sheol with all they owned. The earth closed over them, and they vanished from the assembly. Write on the comments how many questions you answered correctly. If you like this quiz, rate it with the like button. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Amen.